I never thought a single sentence could unravel everything. My name's Emily, I'm 30 years old, and until that night, I thought my life with Tim was, well, fine. Not perfect, not thrilling, but fine. We've been married for 6 years, living in this cozy two-bedroom apartment in Portland that we scraped together for with his steady programmer's salary and my freelance design gigs. The place smells like coffee in the mornings because Tim insists on grinding beans himself, and the walls are covered with my quirky sketches. Bright colors, abstract shapes, things that make me feel alive. He always says he loves them, but sometimes I catch him staring at them like they're just background noise. Maybe that's where it started, feeling like I was background noise too. Tim's 32, the kind of guy who wears the same gray hoodie every weekend and has this quiet way of moving through life. He works remote for some tech company, hunched over his laptop with those noise-canceling headphones, typing away like the world depends on his code. He's reliable, sweet even, always remembers to buy my favorite lavender soap when we run out, always checks if I've eaten when I'm buried in a deadline. But reliable doesn't always mean exciting. Lately, I've been craving something more, something to shake up the routine of Netflix marathons, grocery runs, and his endless talk about optimizing server performance. I love him, I do, but sometimes I wonder if love is enough when it feels so predictable. It wasn't always like this. When we met at that design conference 6 years ago, he was different. Nervous, yes, but with this spark in his eyes when he complimented my portfolio. He asked me out with a shy smile, and our first date was at this tiny Italian place where he spilled wine on his shirt and laughed it off. Back then, I felt seen like I mattered. Now he kisses my forehead before bed and rolls over, and I'm left staring at the ceiling, wondering if he even notices me anymore. I've tried dropping hints, new dresses, flirty texts, even suggesting a spontaneous road trip, but he just nods and says, "Sounds nice, maybe next month." Next month. Always next month. That's how I ended up at Sarah's party last Friday. Sarah's my best friend from college, the kind of person who throws these wild gatherings with fairy lights, loud music, and too much wine. I needed a break from the monotony, a chance to feel alive again. Tim came with me, reluctantly, because I begged him to. He stood by the snack table most of the night, chatting with Sarah's husband Mark about some new gaming console, while I mingled with the crowd. I wore this emerald green dress that hugs my curves, something I bought last week, hoping he'd notice. He didn't. Not a glance, not a compliment. Just that same distracted smile when I waved at him from across the room. The wine was flowing, and I was on my third glass when the conversation turned to relationships. Sarah's sister, Jen, was complaining about her boyfriend's lack of passion, and I laughed a little too loud. "Oh, I get it," I said, waving my glass. "Sometimes I think if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't pick Tim. He's great, but, maybe I'd go for someone with a bit more fire." The group chuckled, and I meant it as a joke, a playful jab to get his attention, to see if he'd finally react. I glanced over at him, expecting that raised eyebrow or a teasing grin, something to show he cared. But he was still talking to Mark, oblivious. Or so I thought. The laughter died down, and I turned back to the group, feeling a little buzzed and a little bold. "Seriously," I added, leaning into the moment, "sometimes I wonder if I'd be happier with someone who actually sees me." It was exaggerated, dramatic me being me. I figured Tim would hear, roll his eyes, and pull me into a hug later like he always did when I got too mouthy. But when I looked over again, he wasn't by the snack table. My stomach twisted. Where'd he go? You okay?" Sarah asked, touching my arm. I nodded, brushing it off. "Yeah, just need some air." I stepped outside onto the balcony, the cool night air hitting my face. The city lights blinked below, and I pulled out my phone, texting him, "Hey, where are you?" No reply. I waited 5 minutes 10, scrolling through Instagram to distract myself. Still nothing. The party noise faded behind me, and this uneasy feeling started creeping in. Maybe he'd gone to the bathroom. Maybe he was mad. I told myself it was fine, that he'd come find me, laugh it off, and we'd go home together. But when I went back inside, Mark was alone by the table, munching on chips. "Where's Tim?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Mark shrugged. He said he wasn't feeling great and left a while ago. My heart sank. Left, without me, I grabbed my jacket and hurried out to the parking lot, but his car was gone. The night felt colder now, and I stood there, phone in hand, replaying my words. It was just a joke. Right? Just a stupid, harmless joke. I drove home in a daze, the green dress suddenly feeling too tight, too loud. Our apartment was dark when I walked in, the coffee smell replaced by silence. His keys weren't on the hook by the door. His sneakers weren't by the mat. I called his name, my voice echoing off the walls. Nothing. Then I saw it, a folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter, his neat handwriting staring back at me. "You're right, Em. I'm not what you need. I'm gone. Take care." I read it 3 times, my hands shaking. Gone just like that? My legs gave out and I sank onto a chair, the note crumpling in my fist. It was a joke. A stupid, careless joke. How could he take it seriously? How could he leave me over this? The silence pressed in, and for the first time I felt the weight of my words, words I didn't even mean. But maybe, deep down, a part of me did, and that scared me more than anything. I sat there at the kitchen counter, staring at the crumpled note in my hand, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The apartment felt colder than ever, the silence suffocating. Tim's words looped in my mind. "You're right, Em. I'm not what you need. I'm gone. Take care." I couldn't wrap my head around it. He left. He actually left. Over a joke, my joke. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that he'd walk through the door any minute, his keys jingling, his gray hoodie slung over his shoulder, and he'd laugh it off, saying he just needed a drive to clear his head. But the clock on the wall kept ticking. 11:47 p.m., 11:50 p.m., midnight, and the door stayed shut. I grabbed my phone and called him, my fingers trembling as I pressed his name. Straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Tim, leave a message." His voice sounded so normal, so calm, like nothing had happened. I hung up and called again. Voicemail again, voicemail. "Tim," I finally said, my voice cracking, "where are you? This isn't funny. I didn't mean it, okay? I was joking. Just come home, please." I ended the call, tears burning my eyes, and sent a string of texts. "Where are you? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please answer me." No reply. The little "delivered" under my messages stared back at me, mocking me. I paced the apartment, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. His side of the bed was untouched, the pillow still fluffed the way he always left it. I opened his closet. His clothes were still there, his neatly folded sweaters, his one good suit he wore to weddings. But his laptop was gone. His charger, his headphones, the little black backpack he used for work trips, they were all missing. He'd packed. He'd planned this. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. How long had he been thinking about leaving? How long had I been pushing him away, without even realizing it? I sank onto the couch, the green dress still clinging to me, the fabric wrinkled now. The memory of the party played over and over in my head. Sarah's living room, the fairy lights twinkling, the hum of laughter, the taste of wine on my lips. "Sometimes I think if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't pick Tim," I said. I'd laughed, tossing my hair back like I was some carefree actress in a rom-com. I wanted him to hear me, to look at me, to care. But what if he'd heard more than I meant? What if he'd heard the truth I didn't even know I was saying? I grabbed my phone again and called Sarah. It was late, but she picked up after a few rings, her voice groggy. "Em, you okay? It's almost 1 a.m. "Tim's gone," I blurted, my voice shaking. "He left me, Sarah. He left a note and just he's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" She sounded more awake now, concerned. "What happened?" I told her everything, the joke at the party, how he disappeared, the note. My words tumbled out in a rush, tripping over each other. "I didn't mean it, Sarah. I was just trying to get his attention. I thought he'd laugh or get annoyed or something. But he just left. What do I do?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Oh, Em," she finally said, her voice soft. "That was a really harsh thing to say. I mean, I know you didn't mean it like that, but if I were Tim, I'd be hurt too." Her words stung. Harsh, I hadn't thought of it as harsh. It was a joke. A stupid, flirty, wine-fueled joke. But the more I replayed it, the worse it sounded. I wouldn't pick Tim, maybe I'd go for someone with more fire. I'd said it in front of everyone, Sarah, Jen, Mark, a dozen other people we knew. I'd embarrassed him. I'd made him feel like he wasn't enough, like I didn't want him. And I hadn't even noticed the look on his face, because I was too busy laughing. too busy playing the part of the fun, carefree wife. I need to find him, I said, standing up, suddenly desperate. I need to explain. He can't just leave like this. It's late, Sarah said. He's probably just cooling off somewhere. Give him some space. He'll come back. But I couldn't wait. I couldn't sit in this empty apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of our life together. I grabbed my keys, slipped on a pair of sneakers, and drove to the only place I could think of his best friend Dave's house. Dave lived 20 minutes away in a small condo downtown, and he and Tim had been inseparable since college. If Tim was anywhere, he'd be there. The streets were quiet, the city asleep except for a few late-night stragglers outside bars. I parked outside Dave's building, my hands gripping the steering wheel. His lights were off. I called Dave anyway, my heart pounding. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice thick with sleep. Emily, what's going on? Is Tim there? I asked, my voice desperate. Please, Dave, I need to know. A pause. No, he's not here, Dave said, but there was something in his tone, something hesitant. What happened? He left, I said, my voice breaking. I said something stupid at the party, and he left a note saying he's gone. I don't know where he is. Dave sighed. I haven't seen him, Em. But look, Tim's been off lately. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's been quieter than usual. Last week we grabbed beers, and he mentioned feeling like he's not enough for you. I told him he was overthinking it, but maybe he was. My stomach dropped. Not enough for me? Tim thought that? I thought back to the last few weeks, me snapping at him for forgetting to take out the trash, me rolling my eyes when he suggested another quiet night in, me complaining about how he never took me anywhere exciting. I'd been so caught up in my own frustration, my own need for something more, that I hadn't seen how it was affecting him, how I was making him feel. If he shows up, will you tell me? I asked, my voice small. Yeah, I will, Dave said. But Em, maybe you should give him some time. If he left like that, he's probably hurting. I hung up, the weight of his words sinking in. Hurting? I'd hurt Tim. The man who'd spent 6 years loving me, supporting me, putting up with my chaos. The man who'd held my hand through every late-night deadline, who'd made me laugh when I was stressed, who'd never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I'd made him feel like he was nothing. I drove home, tears streaming down my face. The apartment felt even emptier now, the silence louder. I curled up on the couch, clutching his note, and cried until my eyes burned. I kept checking my phone, hopping for a text, a call, anything. But there was nothing. Just the glow of the screen and the ache in my chest. I woke up on the couch, my neck stiff, my eyes swollen. The green dress was still on, wrinkled and stained with mascara. For a moment, I thought it was all a bad dream, that Tim would be in the kitchen, grinding coffee beans, humming some song he'd heard on the radio. But the kitchen was empty, the coffee maker untouched. The reality hit me like a punch to the gut. He was gone. I checked my phone. No messages, no calls. I called him again, but it went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message this time. I didn't know what to say. I texted Sarah instead, any chance you've heard from Tim? She replied almost immediately, no, sorry, Em. Mark hasn't heard from him either. You okay? I was okay. I was the opposite of okay. But I texted back, I'll be fine, just need to find him. I showered, the hot water doing little to wash away the guilt. I kept replaying the party in my head, trying to remember every detail. Had Tim heard me the first time I said it? Or the second when I doubled down with, maybe I'd be happier with someone who actually sees me? Had he been standing closer than I thought? Had he seen the way I laughed, the way I tossed my hair, the way I soaked up the attention from everyone else but him? The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. I'd been so selfish, so reckless with my words. I'd wanted him to notice me, but I hadn't thought about what it would do to him. I got dressed, jeans, a sweater, nothing flashy, and drove to his office. Tim worked remotely most of the time, but he sometimes went into the tech company's downtown office for meetings. Maybe he was there, hiding out, trying to clear his head. The office was a sleek, modern building with glass walls and a receptionist who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I'm looking for Tim Harper, I said, forcing a smile. Is he here? The receptionist typed something into her computer, her nails clicking against the keys. Tim Harper? No, he hasn't checked in today. He's scheduled to work from home this week. Oh, I said, my voice small. Thanks anyway. I turned to leave, but then I heard her call after me. Wait, are you Emily? I froze, turning back. Yeah, that's me. Why? She hesitated, then reached under her desk and pulled out a small envelope. Tim dropped this off yesterday afternoon. Said to give it to you if you came by. My heart raced as I took the envelope. It had my name on it in his handwriting. I thanked her and walked back to my car, my hands trembling as I tore it open. Inside was another note, short and to the point. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown for a few days. I need space, Em. Don't come looking for me. The Marriott? He was at the Marriott. Relief flooded me. He was okay, he was safe, but then the second part hit. Don't come looking for me. He didn't want to see me. He didn't want to talk. I sat in my car, the note in my lap, and cried again. I'd pushed him away, and now he was pushing me away, and I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I drove to the Marriott, my mind racing. I knew he'd told me not to come, but I couldn't help it. I needed to see him, to explain, to make him understand that I didn't mean it. The hotel lobby was all marble and soft lighting, the kind of place Tim would never pick on his own. He preferred cozy, budget-friendly spots. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he wanted to be somewhere I wouldn't expect. I went to the front desk, my voice shaky. Hi, I'm looking for Tim Harper. Can you tell me what room he's in? The clerk, a young guy with a name tag that said Ryan, gave me a sympathetic look. I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't give out guest information. Privacy policy. Please, I said, my voice breaking. He's my husband. We had a fight and I just need to talk to him. I need to make this right. Ryan hesitated, then sighed. I can't tell you his room number, but I can call up to his room and see if he wants to come down. What's your name? Emily, I said, my heart pounding. Emily Harper. He picked up the phone and dialed, waiting as it rang. And rang and rang. I'm sorry, he said finally, hanging up. No answer. He might not be in his room right now. I nodded, blinking back tears. Thanks for trying. I sat down in the lobby, on a plush leather couch that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and waited. I'd wait all day if I had to. I scrolled through my phone, looking at old photos of us. Our wedding day, me in a white dress with lace sleeves, him in that suit he hated wearing, both of us grinning like idiots. A hiking trip last summer, him squinting into the sun while I laughed at his terrible selfie skills. A random morning in bed, me stealing his hoodie while he pretended to be annoyed. We'd been happy. We had been. So how did we get here? An hour passed, 2. I kept glancing at the elevators, hoping to see him step out, but he never did. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I wrote a note on a piece of hotel stationery I found at the front desk. Tim, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I love you. Please talk to me. M. I handed it to Ryan and asked him to give it to Tim if he saw him. Then I left, feeling more defeated than ever. Back at the apartment, the emptiness hit me harder than ever. I walked through every room, touching things that reminded me of him, his favorite coffee mug, the sci-fi novels on his nightstand, the little sticky notes he'd leave on the fridge with reminders like buy milk or love you, M. I kept thinking about what Dave had said, Tim feeling like he wasn't enough. How had I not seen it? How had I been so blind? I called my mom, needing someone to talk to. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm. Hey, sweetie, how's my favorite designer? Mom, I said, my voice breaking. Tim left me. What? Her tone shifted immediately. What do you mean left you? What happened? I told her everything, the party, the joke, the note, the hotel. I expected her to take my side, to tell me Tim was overreacting, but instead she sighed. Oh, Emily, she said. You've always had a sharp tongue. I've told you before to be careful with your words. Tim's a good man. He's always been good to you, and you embarrassed him in front of everyone. I know, I said, tears streaming down my face. I know I messed up, but I didn't think he'd leave. I thought he'd fight for us. Maybe he's tired of fighting, she said gently. Maybe he's been fighting for a long time and you didn't notice. Her words cut deep. I thought about all the times I'd brushed him off, all the times I'd made him feel small. The time I laughed at his idea of starting a small app development side business, saying he'd never have the guts to quit his job. The time I snapped at him for not being spontaneous enough when he planned a quiet anniversary dinner at home. The time I told him he was boring compared to Sarah's husband Mark, who was always whisking her off on adventures. I'd been chipping away at him, piece by piece, and I hadn't even realized it. I hung up with my mom and curled up on the bed, pulling his pillow to my chest. It still smelled like him, cedarwood and laundry detergent. I cried until I couldn't anymore, until my body felt hollow. I kept checking my phone, hopping for a text, a call, anything. But there was nothing, just silence. The next day, I went to Sarah's house, needing to get out of the apartment. She opened the door, her face full of concern, and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, Em," she said, leading me inside. "You look awful. Have you slept?" "Barely," I said, sinking onto her couch. Her house smelled like vanilla candles, and her kids were playing in the backyard, their laughter drifting through the open window. It felt so normal, so warm, everything my life wasn't right now. "Any word from Tim?" she asked, handing me a mug of tea. I shook my head. "He's at the Marriott downtown. I went there, but he doesn't want to see me. I left a note, but nothing." Sarah sat down across from me, her expression serious. "Em, I need to be honest with you. What you said at the party, it wasn't just a joke. I mean, it might have been to you, but to Tim, it was a gut punch. Mark told me later that Tim looked like he'd been slapped when he heard you. He didn't say anything, just grabbed his jacket and left. I think he was humiliated." Humiliated? The word hit me like a brick. I'd humiliated my husband in front of our friends, in front of strangers. I'd made him feel like he wasn't enough, like I didn't want him. And for what? A cheap laugh, a moment of attention. "I didn't mean it," I said, my voice small. I wanted him to notice me. I've been feeling so invisible lately, Sarah, like I'm just part of the furniture. I thought if I said something dramatic, he'd, I don't know, react. Get jealous, get mad, something. Sarah sighed. "I get it, Em, I do, but Tim's not that guy. He's not the get jealous and fight for you type. He's the quietly take it until he can't anymore type. And I think you pushed him too far this time." Her words echoed my mom's. Maybe he's tired of fighting. I thought about all the little ways I'd taken him for granted, all the times I'd ignored his quiet gestures of love. The way he'd always make sure my car had gas before a big deadline, the way he'd leave me little notes in my sketchbook, the way he'd hold me when I was stressed, even when I didn't deserve it. And I'd thrown it all away for a moment of attention. "Do you think he'll come back?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah hesitated, then reached for my hand. "I don't know, Em, but if he does, you need to show him you're serious. Not just with words, with actions. You need to prove you want this marriage as much as he does." I nodded, but inside, I felt more lost than ever. Prove I wanted this marriage? How? I didn't even know where to start. All I knew was that I'd never felt so alone, and it was my own fault. Days passed, and the silence stretched on. I went through the motions, working on design projects, eating cereal straight from the box, staring at my phone. I kept calling Tim, leaving voicemails that started desperate and turned frantic. "Tim, please, just talk to me. I'm so sorry, I love you, I didn't mean it." No reply. I texted him every day, long paragraphs begging him to come home, to give me a chance to make things right. Nothing. I went back to the Marriott 3 more times, each time leaving with nothing but more disappointment. Ryan, the clerk, started to recognize me, giving me these pitying looks that made my stomach churn. "He checked out yesterday," he finally told me on my 3rd visit. "I don't know where he went." Checked out, he was gone again, and I had no idea where to look. I drove to Dave's house again, but he hadn't seen him. I called Tim's sister, Lauren, who lived in Seattle, but she hadn't heard from him either. "He texted me a few days ago," she said, her voice cold. "Said he needed space. Honestly, Emily, I'm not surprised. Tim's always been the one holding your marriage together. Maybe it's time you stepped up." Her words stung, but she was right. Tim had always been the steady one, the one who kept us going. and I'd taken that for granted, assuming he'd always be there, no matter what I said or did. But now he wasn't, and I didn't know how to get him back. I started sleeping on his side of the bed, wrapping myself in his old hoodie, trying to hold onto the pieces of him that were left. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for him, only to find empty sheets. I'd cry until my throat was raw, then get up and do it all over again. Work suffered. I missed deadlines, ignored client emails, lost a big project I'd been working on for months. But I didn't care. All I cared about was Tim, and he was slipping further and further away. A week after the party, I got a text from Dave. My heart leapt when I saw his name on the screen, hoping it was news about Tim. The message was short. "Hey, Em, Tim's okay. He's staying with a friend in Eugene for a while. He asked me to tell you he's not ready to talk yet. I'm sorry." Eugene, 2 hours away. He'd gone to Eugene, to some friend I didn't even know. I wanted to drive there to find him, to bang on every door until I saw his face. But Dave's words stopped me. He's not ready to talk yet. I had to respect that, didn't I? I had to give him the space he asked for, even if it killed me. I replied to Dave, "Thanks for letting me know. Please tell him I love him, and I'm sorry." Dave didn't respond, but I hoped he'd pass the message along. I sat on the couch, staring at the text, and felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Relief that Tim was safe, that he was okay. Despair that he still didn't want to see me, that he was so far away, physically and emotionally. I thought about what Lauren had said, stepping up. Maybe that's what I needed to do. Maybe I needed to show Tim I was serious, that I wanted this marriage, that I was willing to fight for us the way he always had. But how? How do you fight for someone who doesn't want to be fought for? How do you fix something you broke so completely? I didn't have the answers, but I knew I couldn't give up. Not yet, not ever. The text from Dave sat on my phone like a puzzle I couldn't solve. "Tim's okay. He's staying with a friend in Eugene for a while. He asked me to tell you he's not ready to talk yet." I stared at it for hours, the words blurring as my mind raced. Eugene was 2 hours away, close enough to reach, but far enough to feel like a different world. Tim was there, alive, breathing, existing without me, and he didn't want to talk, not yet. But not yet was never, was it? It was a crack of hope, a sliver of light in the darkness that had swallowed me since that night at Sarah's party. I couldn't wait anymore. The apartment was suffocating. Every corner reminded me of him. Every silence screamed his absence. I'd tried calling, texting, leaving notes at the Marriott, begging friends for updates. Nothing worked. He was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't let him go without a fight. Not after 6 years, not after all the little moments we'd built together. I had to see him, to look into his eyes and make him hear me. I had to prove I meant it when I said I loved him. I packed a bag, jeans, a couple of sweaters, my toothbrush, his old hoodie that I couldn't leave behind. I threw in my sketchbook too, thinking maybe I could draw while I waited, channel my chaos into something tangible. The drive would be long, and I needed something to keep me sane. I checked the map on my phone. Eugene was south, past rolling hills and forests, a place I'd never visited with Tim. Maybe that was why he'd gone there, to escape our memories. Before I left, I texted Dave. "I'm going to Eugene. I need to see him. Please don't tell him I'm coming." I didn't wait for a reply. I grabbed my keys, locked the apartment, and hit the road, the morning sun casting long shadows across the highway. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my heart a mix of determination and dread. What if he refused to see me? What if he told me it was over? I pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the road, the hum of the engine, the faint scent of cedarwood from his hoodie on the passenger seat. The drive took longer than I expected. Traffic, a detour, my own hesitation at every stoplight. By the time I reached Eugene, it was late afternoon, the sky streaked with orange and pink. The town felt different, quieter than Portland, with wide streets lined with old brick buildings and coffee shops that smelled of roasted beans. I didn't know where to start. Dave hadn't told me the friend's name or address, but I figured I could ask around, check local hotels, or even call Tim's old college buddies. Someone had to know. I parked near a small cafe and ordered a latte, my hands shaking as I held the cup. I scrolled through my phone, looking for clues. Tim's social media was silent, no posts, no check-ins, nothing since the party. I called Dave again, but it went to voicemail. "Dave, it's Emily. I'm in Eugene. Please, if you know where Tim is, tell me. I need to fix this. I hung up feeling desperate. Then I remembered. Tim had mentioned a guy named Ryan from college, someone he'd stayed in touch with. Ryan lived in Eugene, or at least he had a few years ago. I searched my contacts and found his number, my finger hovering before pressing call. Hello, Ryan's voice was cautious, unfamiliar. Hi, Ryan, it's Emily, Tim Harper's wife, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I'm in Eugene, and I think Tim might be staying with you. Is he there? A long pause. Emily, he said finally, I wasn't sure if I should tell you. Yeah, he's here, but he's not in a good place right now. My heart leapt. Can I see him? Please, Ryan, I need to talk to him. I messed up and I need to make it right. Another pause. Hold on. I heard muffled voices, then Ryan came back. He says no, he doesn't want to see you yet. He's been drinking, he's a mess. Maybe you should give him more time. Drinking? Tim didn't drink much, maybe a beer with Dave now and then, but never enough to get messy. The thought of him drowning his pain in alcohol twisted my gut. Please, I begged. Just let me talk to him for 5 minutes. I'll leave if he wants me to. Ryan sighed. Okay, come to 142 Maple Street, but I'm warning you, he's not himself. I thanked him, my hands trembling as I typed the address into my phone. 142 Maple Street. I was close, 5 minutes away. I finished my latte, the taste bitter on my tongue, and drove, my mind racing with what I'd say. I'm sorry, I love you. I didn't mean it. Over and over like a mantra. The house at 142 Maple Street was a modest bungalow with a sagging porch and a faded blue door. My heart pounded as I knocked, the sound echoing in the quiet street. The door opened, and Ryan stood there, a tall guy with a beard and tired eyes. Emily, he said, stepping aside. Come in, but I'm staying close. Inside, the living room smelled of beer and stale pizza. Tim sat on a worn couch, a bottle of whiskey in his hand, his gray hoodie rumpled, his hair a mess. He looked up at me and my breath caught. His eyes were red, his face unshaven, a shadow of the man I knew. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken words. Tim, I said, my voice breaking. I came to see you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean what I said at the party. It was a joke, a stupid, careless joke. I love you. Please let me fix this. He took a slow sip of whiskey, his hand unsteady. A joke, he repeated, his voice low, bitter. You told everyone you wouldn't pick me again, that you'd be happier with someone else. And you call that a joke. I didn't mean it, I said, stepping closer. I was drunk, I was trying to get your attention. I've been feeling invisible, Tim, and I messed up, but I love you. You're the only one I want. He laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. Invisible? You've been pushing me away for months, Em. The way you roll your eyes when I talk about work, the way you laugh at my ideas, the way you flirt with other guys at parties just to see if I'll care. I cared. I always cared. But I'm tired of trying to be enough for you. His words hit me like a slap. I'd done that, pushed him away, made him feel small. I know, I said, tears streaming down my face. I know I've been awful, but I can change. I want to change. Please give me a chance. He looked at me, his eyes hard. A chance? After you humiliated me in front of our friends? After you made me feel like I'm nothing to you? I've been thinking about this for a long time, Em. Maybe you're right. Maybe you do deserve someone with more fire. Because I can't keep doing this. I sank to my knees, sobbing. No, Tim, please. I was wrong. I see it now. You're everything to me. I was blind, but I'm not anymore. Don't leave me. He set the bottle down, running a hand through his hair. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said. I need time. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. Go home, Em. I'll call you when I'm ready. As I stood to leave, the front door opened, and a woman walked in, a petite brunette with a warm smile, carrying a grocery bag. She froze when she saw me, her eyes darting to Tim. Oh, she said, her voice soft. I didn't know you had company. Tim stood, his face flushing. Lara, this is Emily, my wife. Emily, this is Lara. She's a friend. She's been helping me out. Lara, a friend. The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. She set the bag down, her movements careful, and I felt a surge of jealousy, hot and sharp. Was she why he'd left? Was she the more fire I'd joked about? I looked at Tim, my heart breaking. "A friend?" I said, my voice trembling. "How long have you known her?" Tim sighed, rubbing his temples. "Lara's an old college friend. I ran into her a few days ago. She offered me a place to stay when I needed to get away. That's it, Em. Nothing happened." But the way she looked at him, the way he relaxed around her, it didn't feel like nothing. I felt sick, my mind spinning with images of them together, laughing, talking, sharing things I'd never given him. "I need to go," I said, turning toward the door. I can't do this right now." "Emily, wait," Tim called, but I was already outside, the cold air hitting my face. I stumbled to my car, tears blinding me, and drove away, my hands shaking on the wheel. Lara, a friend, but what if she was? What if I'd pushed him into her arms? The drive back to Portland was a blur, my mind a storm of guilt and fear. I kept seeing Tim's face, hurt, tired, distant, and Lara's smile, soft and kind, the kind of smile I hadn't given him in months. Had I lost him for good? Had my joke not only broken us apart but opened the door for someone else? I thought about all the times I'd taken him for granted, all the times I'd wanted more without appreciating what I had. And now, maybe it was too late. I pulled over at a rest stop, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. I cried until my chest hurt, my sobs echoing in the empty car. I'd gone to Eugene to fight for him, but all I'd found was more pain, pain I'd caused, pain he was sharing with someone else. I thought about his words, "I need to figure out if I can trust you again." Could I even trust myself after this? I opened my sketchbook, my pencil shaking as I drew Tim's face, his quiet smile, the way he used to look at me. Then I drew Lara, her soft features, her grocery bag, the way she'd walked into his life like she belonged there. The page blurred with my tears, and I threw the sketchbook aside, angry at myself, at him, at everything. But deep down, I knew I had to keep trying. I had to show him I was serious, that I could be the wife he deserved. Even if it meant letting him go for now, even if it meant losing him to Lara. I had to fight, not just for him, but for me, for the person I wanted to become. I got home as the sun set, the apartment dark and cold. I dropped my bag by the door and sank onto the couch, Tim's hoodie in my arms. The silence was deafening, but this time it wasn't just empty. It was heavy with everything I'd seen, everything I'd felt. I checked my phone, hopping for a message, but there was nothing. Just the memory of Tim's voice, Lara's face, and the realization that I might have lost him forever. I thought about calling Sarah, telling her about Lara, asking for advice. But I didn't. I needed to figure this out myself. I needed to decide what I was willing to do to get him back. I thought about his words again, "I need time." Time. I could give him time, but I couldn't give up. I picked up my sketchbook again, my pencil moving slowly. This time I drew us, me and Tim, laughing on our wedding day, holding hands on that hiking trip, curled up on this very couch. And then I drew myself, alone, reaching for him, tears in my eyes. It was raw, messy, honest. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could change. Maybe I could show him. But as I sat there, the hope faded, replaced by a new fear. What if time wasn't enough? What if Lara was already filling the space I'd left empty? I didn't know. All I knew was that the fight wasn't over, not yet. The apartment felt like a hollow shell as I sat on the couch, clutching Tim's hoodie to my chest. The sketchbook lay open beside me, the drawings of us, happy, broken, reaching, staring back like a mirror to my soul. Lara's face lingered in my mind, her soft smile, the way she'd walked into that house like she belonged there. I couldn't shake the fear that I'd lost him to her, that my careless joke had opened a door I couldn't close. But I also couldn't give up. Not yet. Not when there was still a chance, however small, to fight for us. I looked around the room, the coffee-stained mug he'd left on the table, the stack of his sci-fi novels by the lamp, the faint dent in the couch where he always sat. These were the pieces of our life, the things I'd taken for granted. Sarah's words echoed in my head, "You need to show him you're serious," not just with words, with actions. My mom's voice joined in, "Maybe he's tired of fighting." And Lauren, maybe it's time you stepped up. They were right. I'd been selfish, blind, reckless, but I could change. I had to change. I decided to start small. I cleaned the apartment, scrubbed the kitchen counters, washed the dishes piled in the sink, dusted the shelves where my sketches hung. I made coffee the way he liked it, the grinder whirring in the quiet, and sat at the table with a notebook. I wrote him a letter, my hand shaking as I poured out everything I'd been too proud to say before. Tim, I'm sorry. I've been awful to you, and I see that now. I took you for granted, and I hurt you when I promised I never would. I love you more than I've ever shown, and I want to be the wife you deserve. Please give me a chance to prove it. I folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and addressed it to Ryan's house in Eugene. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I called Dave the next day, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. Dave, it's Emily. I'm trying to fix things with Tim. I sent him a letter. Can you tell me if he gets it? Or if he says anything about me? Dave sighed, his tone cautious. I'll let you know if I hear from him, but he's still in Eugene. He's been talking to me a little. He's confused, hurt. I don't know what he'll do. Thank you, I said, swallowing hard. That's all I can ask for. I hung up and threw myself into work, determined to show I could be better. I finished a design project I'd been neglecting, stayed late to polish it, and sent it to my client with a smile. I started cooking again, Tim's favorite lasagna, the recipe his mom had given me years ago, freezing portions in case he came back. I even joined a local art class, something to fill the emptiness and prove I could grow. Every day, I checked the mail, hopping for a reply, a sign. Nothing came. A week passed, and the routine became my lifeline. I woke up early, made coffee, sketched in my book, worked, cooked, cleaned. The apartment started to feel less like a tomb and more like a home again, though the absence of Tim's laughter, his quiet hums, his presence still ached. I kept the letter on the counter, rereading it, adding to it when new thoughts hit me. I miss your voice. I miss the way you fix my coffee. I miss us. I sent another, shorter note. I'm trying, Tim. I hope you can see that. One evening, as I chopped vegetables for a soup, my phone buzzed. My heart stopped when I saw Tim's name. A text, I got your letters, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the park by the river tomorrow, 2 p.m.? No warmth, no love, just a request, but it was something. He wanted to talk. I replied immediately, yes, I'll be there, thank you. I barely slept that night, my mind spinning with what he might say. Would he forgive me? Would he ask for a divorce? Would Lara be there? I dressed carefully the next day, jeans, a soft blue sweater, my hair down the way he liked it, and drove to the park, my hands sweaty on the wheel. The river glistened under the autumn sun, leaves crunching under my feet as I walked to the bench where we'd once had a picnic. Tim was already there, sitting with his hands in his pockets, his gray hoodie pulled up. He looked thinner, tired, but his eyes met mine, and my breath caught. Hi, I said, sitting beside him, leaving space between us. Hi, he replied, his voice low. He didn't look at me, just stared at the water. I've been thinking a lot, Em. The air felt heavy as we sat there, the river's gentle flow the only sound for a moment. I waited, my heart pounding, afraid to break the silence. Finally, Tim spoke, his voice steady but laced with pain. Your letters, they meant something. I can see you're trying, but I don't know if it's enough. Tim, please, I said, turning to him. I know I hurt you. I know I've been selfish. But I've been working on myself, cleaning, cooking, working harder. I joined an art class. I'm trying to be the person you fell in love with. Give me a chance to show you. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I want to believe you, Em. I do. But it's not just the joke. It's months of feeling like I'm not enough, like I'm holding you back. And then, Lara. She's been a friend, nothing more, but being with her made me realize how much I've lost myself trying to please you. Lara again, the name stung, but I kept my voice calm. I saw her with you. I was jealous, scared. But if she's just a friend, I can live with that. I can't live without you, Tim. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. He looked at me then, his eyes searching mine. Therapy might help. But I need to know you mean it, not just because I'm walking away. I need time to figure out if I can trust you again. And I've been talking to a lawyer. My stomach dropped. A lawyer? You mean divorce? Not yet, he said, his voice soft. but I've been looking into separation. I need space, Em. I need to see if I can be on my own, if I even want to come back. Tears welled up, but I nodded. Okay, space. I'll give you that, but please don't give up on us. I love you, Tim. I'll wait. He reached out, hesitating, then squeezed my hand briefly before letting go. I don't know what I want yet, but I'll call you when I decide. Take care of yourself, Em. He stood and walked away, leaving me on the bench, the cold seeping through my sweater. I watched him go, my heart breaking but holding onto that tiny spark of hope. I drove home in a daze, the park fatting in my rearview mirror. The apartment greeted me with its familiar silence, but now it felt different, less empty, more like a challenge. I told Tim I'd wait, and I meant it. I kept up my routine, cooking, sketching, working, adding therapy to the list. My first session was awkward, but the therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, helped me unpack my need for attention, my fear of being invisible. You've been seeking validation outside your marriage, she said. Now's the time to find it within yourself. I wrote more letters, sent them to Eugene, each one a piece of my soul. I'm in therapy, I'm learning, I miss you. Weeks turned into a month and still no reply. I saw a post from Dave on social media, Tim with a group of friends, laughing, no sign of Lara. It gave me hope but also pain, he was moving on without me. One evening, my phone rang Tim's number. I answered, my voice shaking. Tim. Emily, he said, his tone softer than before. I've made a decision. Can we meet again? We met at a coffee shop this time, a neutral ground. He looked better, clean-shaven, his eyes clearer. I've been in Eugene thinking, he said. Therapy helped me too. I've realized I need to take care of myself, but I also miss us. I don't want a divorce, not yet. But I need a separation, a real one, to see if we can rebuild. Are you willing? Tears streamed down my face, but I nodded. Yes, I'll do it, for us. He smiled faintly. Then let's start there, one step at a time. Months later, we lived apart, but we talked, short calls, cautious texts. I kept growing, kept proving. One day, he came to the apartment, hesitant but warm. We sat on the couch, his hand brushing mine. I think I'm ready to try again, he said, if you are. I nodded, tears of joy mixing with relief. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was ours, a fragile, hard-earned start. And for the first time, I felt like I deserved it.